You've experienced the Elder Scrolls series in your own way, but want to learn more about its story. Well, to get to the heart of the story, you have to go back to the beginning. Some gods are born, others are made, and yet others are damned, such as it was with the elven god Trinimac. There came a time in Tamriel's distant past when the elves of the Somerset Isles grew restless. The Daedric lord Boethia, who had stoked the fires of resentment within their hearts, encouraged the elven Chimmer to break away from their brothers and sisters and forge a new land for themselves. The hero god Trinimac, whom these elves had worshipped for a time, took great offense at the words of Boethia and stood to bar their way to stop the Daedra's venomous words from dividing his people. It was then that Boethia herself materialized and did fierce battle with Trinimac, ultimately defeating the warrior god, and according to some accounts, going so far as to literally devour him. When it was over, Boethia spoke to the Chimmer with Trinimac's own voice and encouraged the renegade elves to move boldly forward and forge for themselves a new destiny. Thus, what we would call Morrowind came to be. That was not the end for Trinimac, however. The remains of the fallen god were transformed with spasms of rage, shame, and dishonor. Out of this horrific transformation, the Daedric prince we call Malacath, god of the spurned and ostracized, took shape. After rubbing the remains of Trinimac upon their bodies, Trinimac's own followers were changed as well. They became the Orsimer, the pariah folk, commonly referred to as orcs. Millennia passed. Detested as cruel and violent savages at best, and feral beastmen at worst, the orcs have used their strength, ferocity, and mastery of the arts of war to carve out a life for themselves. The most traditional of orcs live in strongholds apart from man and mer in accordance with their devotion to Malacath. Despite being loved and revered by most orcs, in the late Third Era, there was a splinter group of orcs living in the capital of Orsinium who maintained that Malacath was in fact a false god and a demon. Soon a priesthood was established that was devoted to the living god Trinimac and committed to the belief that the demon Malacath exists solely to ensure the orcs remain outsiders forevermore. Their words and ideas were considered heresy by the overwhelming majority of orcs, and as such, many in Orsinium live in fear of the day the foul and terrible Malacath comes to destroy them. Because of Malacath's origins, the other Daedric princes seem to disregard him. The scorning of his status amongst his peers is curiously appropriate considering his sphere of influence. Malacath represents the outcast, the exile, the downtrodden and abandoned. It only makes sense he should suffer the same. The plane of oblivion where Malacath dwells is known as the Ash Pit. It is assumed that it came into existence alongside Malacath himself. Like the other pockets of oblivion, it seems to mirror the persona of its master and is comprised accordingly. It is characterized as a place of betrayal, emptiness, anguish, and broken promises, where the atmosphere is ash, and mortals cannot survive without magical assistance. Still, as was recorded in the Fourth Era, the ash pit contains one sanctuary where mortals may safely traverse. This pocket of the ash pit has been described as an echo of something that once was. In this place resides a thicket of slender trees with endless vines of lily-like flowers wound about their trunks. Here the sky is colorless and has an eerie way about it. The location appears to hold great emotional attachment for Malacath and is believed to be a garden devoted to the memory of the god Trinimac, from whose tortured remains Malacath did rise. This belief has never been substantiated. Malacath is considered one of the four corners of the Dunmer House of Troubles, along with Mehrunes Dagon, Molag Bal, and the mad god Sheogorath. It was these four Daedric princes who refused to recognize the authority of the immensely powerful tribunal, and thus became great sources of strife and discontent amongst the five great houses of the Dunmer, as Malacath and his kin actively sought to undermine the divine rulership of the renegade man-gods. The Dark Elves view Malacath as a force by which they are physically tested and thus made strong. It is true that Malacath revels in combat and greatly enjoys watching mortals battle each other to the death. Despite his reputation for ferocity and conflict, however, he is renowned for his great sense of honor and deep level of affection and concern for his followers, particularly the Orsimer. As such, the majority of orcs remain fiercely loyal to him, despite Malacath's often extreme methods. He is said to relish in the death of the weak and careless, because like many Daedric princes, he recognizes strength and will often reward mortals with his powerful artifacts. The Daedric artifact, Volendrung, has fooled many mortals by camouflaging itself as a mundane, unenchanted warhammer. It has appeared at pivotal points in history, such as during the wars of the Imperial Simulacrum and later, during the chaos of the events known as the Warp in the West. Before Malacath had influence over the weapon, however, it is said that the hammer was originally created by the ingenious Dwemer. This weapon originally belonged to the chieftain of the Rurkan Dwemer clan. In Dwarven mythology, his clan had refused to join the rest of the Dwemer when they allied themselves with Boethius Chimmer. How Malacath came to possess Volendrung after the Dwemer is unknown. What is known is that the hammer now embodies the power of Malacath as one of his most sought-after relics. A lesser-known artifact imparted to mortals from Malacath is the mace called Scourge. Also known as the Bane of Daedra, this brutal weapon is dedicated to the banishment of Daedra for the sake of man and mer. Should it be used on any Daedra, they are immediately banished to the void that exists outside of the known realms. Scourge has the ability to not only exile monsters to the emptiness of the void, it can also summon Daedra, such as Draemora, to act on the wielder's behalf. Used to vanish the minions of Mehrunes Dagon and to battle the Daedra lords in the name of the Septim dynasty, the Daedric Scourge has come into play any time the realm of oblivion has threatened Mundus. The artifact is believed to still wander the land in the possession of various adventurers who seek to banish Daedra from their worlds. Malacath continues to be regarded as one of the more evil of Daedric princes and is considered loathsome and despicable, as are his followers, the barbaric and deeply mistrusted orcs. It is his bloodlust and outright hostility that marks him as among the most violent and vicious of the lords residing in Oblivion. Yet this supposed abomination has also repeatedly shown mercy, valor, and great concern both for his disciples and for the mortals residing on Nirn. Malacath tends to the needs of his children, the orcs, and of all those who have been rejected by society. It is this combination of malicious sadism and paternal concern that is the cornerstone of the relationship between the Daedric princes and the mortals they preside over. This blend of deep affection and venomous scorn are also close friends to the Prince of Dusk and Dawn. She, too, has shown both compassion and limitless fury to those who displease her. Like Malacath himself, she has permanently marked the denizens of Tamriel in her own way, going so far as to help create a new people, race, and culture. But that is a story for another day. A special thanks to our sponsors.